Yes, we're about to get started. If we could all settle down. Murray, you're up.
Yeah, thank you. In passing, I was at the Blumenthal Senate hearings in Bridgeport, and I stayed for the whole thing. At the New York City Transit meeting this morning, I presented New York City Transit with the Concerned Grandparents Excellence Award for Fast Track and their Sandy recovery. They're still on the table. They were on the table. It's come to my attention that the manual of uniform traffic control devices that you all rely on so heavily is badly flawed. It's well known throughout the people who are associated with it. There were changes made to it on personal whim and not on real evidence. As a result, you have been following a flawed document. This is being recorded. My words will be there. You are notified that the document that you're using has enormous errors in it. They're well known, but because of priorities and getting various things changed in Congress and otherwise, it has a low priority. And therefore, I will not go after particular areas of it. But your decision on toll booths, lane markings, is costing this area, beside money, economic growth. Economic growth depends on having a system of transportation that is efficient and effective. Especially what you have been doing and what you propose to do does not aid the distracted driver. Drivers today are not paying attention because they're, as the gentleman up there is checking his email, so are drivers. And the information that you give drivers needs to be clear, concise, and have one meaning.
Murray, if you could wrap it up.
How many of you have stared at a traffic light when it turned green and the guy in front of you is still sitting there? That's distracted driving. And you have a responsibility to look at the operations of bridge and tunnel and see where they might be improved. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Public comment period is over, and I move on to the approval of the minutes, September 2013. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. I will turn the meeting over to the president. Committee work plan?
No changes to the committee work plan. I'd like to begin this very busy committee day with an answer. We owe many of the committee members here that sit on the B&T committee an answer based on a discussion we had at the last CPOC meeting. The questions centered around the enforcement of the new HOV lane at the Verrazano Bridge. Jim Fortunato will give the response.
To give you some background, the New York State Department of Transportation is currently modifying the Staten Island Expressway, I-278, in both the east and westbound directions to improve access to the Staten Island Expressway and their bus high occupancy vehicle lane. When the project is completed, the lane will extend from Victory Boulevard on the Staten Island Expressway over the Verrazano Bridge and to the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel. In conjunction with New York State DOT and the Staten Island Expressway work, the planned redecking of the upper level of the Verrazano Bridge to be completed in 2017 will include a reversible bus HOV lane to handle eastbound traffic to Brooklyn during the weekday morning rush, generally 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., and westbound to Staten Island, handling traffic in the evening rush hour, generally from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. The bus HOV lane on the bridge will also connect to the single bus HOV lane on the Gowanus Expressway in Brooklyn. The safety of motorists and our law enforcement personnel remains our highest priority. It is important to note that no enforcement will be performed without a safe location to stop vehicles out of the flow of traffic. MTA Bridges and Tunnels Special Operation Division has been working closely with New York State DOT and NYPD on plans for a safe and effective enforcement strategy for the future continuous bus HOV lane. The strategies include, but are not limited to, regular and roving patrols, safe pullover enforcement areas on the SIE and the Gowanus Expressway sectors,
I'll do that next.
fixed posts at the UL Cary Tunnel for morning operations, random posts at the Verrazano Narrows Toll Plaza for evening operations, and we will use signage, fixed and electronic signs, and pavement markings. In addition, the Verrazano Narrows Bridge bus HOV lane will be monitored using video surveillance to oversee the safe operation of the lane and to expedite response time to an incident. Note, camera enforcement for occupant requirements is not feasible, as an officer would need to physically verify the number of occupants as we do in carpool toll lanes. Bridges and tunnel officers will be on patrol as always, with the ultimate goal of moving traffic, reducing collisions, and preventing injuries and avoiding any fatalities. Thank you. If there are any questions, we can answer.
Any questions? Hearing none, I'm going to move on to the review of B&T Committee Charter. I believe as part of our going back to the 11-month schedule for next year, we need to change the charter, and that is reflected for the Bridge and Tunnels Committee. I believe that's the only major change in that, and I think it requires a vote of the committee. So if I have a motion. Second. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you.
We'll move over to page 21 now, report on operations. David Moretti.
Thank you, Jim. We're looking at the month of August. In August, we had 25,638,000 transactions, which was only a slight decrease versus the prior year, 32,000 crossings. If we look at the different factors that may have played into the number of crossings we had, we know that we had a toll increase in March. We know that the price of gas was lower this year than the prior year, and we also know that the weather was slightly better this year than last year. A combination of all those things led to the traffic that I just reported. Easy Pass volumes were up roughly 500,000 versus the prior year, and cash crossings are down almost 500,000 from the prior year. Passenger car travel was down 0.2%, and truck traffic was up 1.1%. Year to date, we had 189.4 million crossings, which is 2.2 million fewer than a year ago. And we're looking at September's early forecast for traffic was about 23.8 million crossings, which is actually 0.3% better than it was the prior September. That's my report. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer.
Thank you.
No questions. We'll move on to a AET presentation. I think I've passed it out to all the committee members. So let me begin. 4 years ago, Bridges and Tunnels embarked on a new initiative in the form of a pilot program at the Henry Hudson Bridge to test all electronic tolling. The purpose of the pilot was to test the new technologies required to collect video images, develop business rules, and assess the back office systems used to bill non-Easy Pass customers. We kicked off the pilot in January 11 by removing the gates from Easy Pass lanes. In November of 12, we eliminated cash collection and implemented all cashless tolling. Today, our customers can proceed through the Henry Hudson Toll Plaza without stopping. I am pleased to report that from January through June of 13, we have processed 10.6 million AET transactions. We have increased mobility through the facility. We have increased Easy Pass market share. We have implemented a reloadable card for our cash customers. Equipment and technology has met expectation. And most importantly, Our recent customer satisfaction survey reported 95% satisfaction with all electronic tolling. Notwithstanding, pilot programs are not without challenges. In conjunction with regional toll agencies, we are proposing new AET legislation. We will continue our work to increase Easy Pass market share in an effort to reduce tolls by mail. And we need to develop a comprehensive AET marketing strategy in conjunction with regional toll agencies. At this point in time, the Henry Hudson pilot is not a blueprint for build-out to other facilities operated by MTA Bridges and Tunnels. With that said, we remain on course to successfully complete this pilot project. While we expect the pilot to continue through 2014, we have begun the process necessary to formulate a recommendation to the board on whether to adopt all electronic tolling as the permanent method of toll collection at the Henry Hudson Bridge. With that, you can move to the handout.
1 second.
Sure.
Let me see if I can develop for people to readily understand the point you made about your inability to, at this stage, recommend the expansion to other facilities based on the conversations you and I have had on this subject, Jim. If I understand correctly, there is a meaningful segment of the riding public that goes through those existing booths or the gantry without paying. And in the absence of an existing mechanism under which the licenses of those drivers or the registration of those drivers would be subject to either forfeiture or penalty, you have a significant problem in effectuating the kind of collections that you believe are appropriate. And if that is correct, as I understand it, it is dependent upon the New York State Legislature to finally come to grips with the fact that if, as, and when people agree that it's better to do this, and anybody who rides across the Henry Hudson Bridge will tell you this is a marvelous way of moving traffic and better for drivers and passengers. Until the legislature recognizes that it's got to provide the arms and the legs for enforcement, this will continue to be a problem on all of the other major bridges where you have trucks and other vehicles that have high toll rates and have a greater propensity for trying to beat the tolls. Have I substantially accurately stated what the conclusion is?
Commissioner, it sounds like an editorial. There are parts of it that are accurate. There are parts that are inaccurate.
So tell me, where am I wrong?
The part where you had said that people are not paying the toll, basically people without Easy Pass transponders, there's no need for them to pay the toll at that point when they pass the gantry. We bill them. We send them a bill.
But it's the collection on the bills that I'm focused on.
Correct, Commissioner. There's a distinction from not paying your toll at the location to not paying a bill. And there's various stages in which the collection process moves forward, which will entertain those questions and explain them to the committee. There's a billing process, and the billing process is extensive, ultimately leading to collection in civil court. But with that said, from gaining the information we're gaining from this pilot program, we see that many of the customers using the facility do pay their toll. There's a percentage that get billed, and out of that percentage that get billed, we're in the process of trying to understand how many of them do pay their bill and in what part of the cycle they pay the bill. So I hope I've answered some of that.
All right, let me see if I can be accurate, all right? So where you have people who don't have an Easy Pass, and you bill them, you have a number that don't pay the bills. And your tolls on the Henry Hudson Bridge are less than they are, for example, on those astronomical tolls on the Verrazano Bridge. correct?
That's
And
correct.
so if the
Here,
same
here.
thing were repeated there, you'd have an even greater deficit, correct? It clearly is, and intended as such.
Commissioner, the pilot was intended to focus on a facility that had predominantly
Jim, the
card
only point
collection.
I'm trying to make is, what you and your colleagues are trying to achieve is to do the following. If somebody, for whatever reason, does not have the ability or willingness to pay the toll on an electronic system and is billed and doesn't pay it, you want to have the arms and the legs to make sure it's paid by providing that people who have outstanding tickets for failure to pay them cannot renew their driver's license or their registrations until they do. Isn't that correct?
That is part of the legislation, yes.
Okay. Okay, if we can just hold off on other questions until we get through the presentation, and then we'll open it back up.
Okay, we'll start off with page 1, the Regional Mobility Easy Pass Market Share. Pat Parisi will present that page.
All right, on the chart on the, that's it. The chart on the upper left illustrates improved mobility through the facility as we have moved to AET at the Henry Hudson, with more than 99% of traffic moving more than 30 miles per hour during the AM and PM weekday rush hour periods. The chart on the upper right shows how Easy Pass market share has soared up to 94% with the implementation of AET. Easy Pass market share is at 83.9 for all other facilities. Across the bottom of the slide are programs that were implemented to increase Easy Pass market share and customer convenience. The use of reload cards allow customers to use an alternative to checking or credit cards to fund their Easy Pass account. This accounts for 14% of all cash reimbursements, replenishments. We have opened more than 17,325 paper trip accounts, which allow customers to pay on a daily basis through their checking accounts. Easy Pass on the go is available as a convenient means of introducing cash customers to Easy Pass. This program has seen 245,000 in toll lane sales to date. 78% of the on-the-go tags sold in cash lanes have been registered.
Let's move on, and we'll take the questions at the end of the presentation. It's only a 5-deck slide. We thought it was very important that we give an indication on how the in-lane equipment is working. So Bob Redding will present that piece of the information. Bob?
Thanks, Jim. So the significant change that we made at the plaza, among some more minor changes, was the installation of high-resolution cameras to be able to capture license plates of those vehicles that do not have Easy Pass. And so out of the 10.6 million trips that Jim mentioned earlier, about 9.5 million of them are Easy Pass trips, so no image is necessary. And then I'm going to skip over to lane availability for just a second. About 10% of those trips require a photo image for us to collect that toll. And during the period of January to June, we captured an image that was usable towards that end 99.8% of the time. And during the same period, we had no unscheduled lane closures due to the technology, so essentially the lane availability was 100%.
And as we move on, the customer experience is very important to bridges and tunnels. So we are presenting a slide on the customer experience. Don?
Just very briefly, the customer satisfaction survey that is actually in the book. About 85% of our customers, 89% of our customers expressed overall satisfaction with the Henry Hudson Bridge, which is the same number as last year, which is good news despite toll increase and construction. But what we're really happy to see is that, as Jim said, 95% of those same customers expressed satisfaction with their travel experience since AET was implemented at the bridge. So even higher than the already high 89%. I'm going to turn over the rest of this page to Anne-Marie Bressler, who oversees our Easy Pass program. She'll talk to you about what she's hearing from our customers directly in the AET program.
Thanks, Don. The Customer Service Center in Staten Island receives about 5,000 phone calls a month from customers who are inquiring about our Tolls by Mail program. And on the slide, you can see the top 5 inquiries that the service center receives. The first question is, how do I pay my toll bill? We make it very easy for our customers. They can go on our website, the Tolls by Mail website. They can phone our voice response system. They can pay by credit or debit card, checking account, and they can also call the customer service center and speak with the customer service representative to pay that bill. All three methods are available in both English and Spanish for a Spanish-speaking population. Customers can also mail payments, check or money order to our lockbox up in Albany, or they can visit our walk-in centers to pay in cash, and they can also use the retail network that was established for the Reload card, the Visa ReadyLink network. Second question that comes in most frequently is, when will my toll bill be mailed to me? As part of the pilot, we set up time period of 30 days or 60 days when a bill will be mailed, and that depends on the dollar amount of the tolls that are being billed to the customer. Moving forward, because this was a pilot and we evaluated the frequency of those bills, we're going to be moving towards a 30-day billing cycle for our customers. And all bills have a 30-day due date from the invoice date. So a customer has 30 days to pay. After that point, they'll receive an overdue bill and have an additional 30 days to pay the toll. Our third most popular question is, how do I become an EasyPass customer? On the bills that the customers receive, it tells them that they can convert to an EasyPass account, and to date, since the program's inception, we've had 11,000 customers who've converted to become an EasyPass customer. They can still open an account through our website. They can come into our walk-in centers, and if they do open an EasyPass account, those tolls are converted at the EasyPass rate, so the customer does save money. Another question customers have, and this is really an education process for the customers: why did I get a toll bill? Why did I receive a toll bill? The customer service representatives explained that they crossed the Henry Hudson Bridge. They did not have an EasyPass transponder, and as part of this pilot program, we're sending them a bill in the mail. They do have an opportunity to become an EasyPass customer if they choose to do so. And finally, customers ask about, can I have my fees waived? If they receive an overdue bill, can they have that late fee waived? We automatically grant waivers to customers who may not have updated their address with the DMV. For customers who have moved, have not notified the Postal Service that they've moved, we'll waive those fees automatically for the customer. But again, we ask that the tolls be paid first, and then the waiver will occur. So those are the top reasons why our customers call, and I think it's important to note that based on this customer feedback, we've modified our Tolls by Mail website to give the customer easy answers to these questions. Thank you.
If you could turn to page 5, we'll discuss the revenue summary. Don?
Okay, thanks, Jim. The purpose of this slide is really twofold. Number one, we want to show you how we're doing on collecting revenue, but it's also a lead into the next slide, which talks about the legislation that was previously mentioned. I think this slide helps illustrate why we're seeking it. The first three numbers on the right-hand side, the 26,209, the 3375, the 29,585, that is those are the transactions that are registered in the lanes and what they equate to in terms of dollars. So it's about $29.6 million that goes through the lane. That is what we'd like to collect in a perfect world, so to speak. The next three numbers, the 26,140, the 2082, the 28,222, that's what we actually have been collecting. We're collecting about 26,140 out of the 26,209 for EasyPass, almost all of it. About 2.1 out of the 3.4 for tolls by mail. When you add up those numbers, it comes to the 28,222, which is better than 95% of the higher number, 29% of all of the total that is transacted through the lanes. And then you come to the third line, that the third sort of section there, the total late and violation fees collected, the 1313. When you add that 1313 number to the 2822 number, you can see that we are just about at 100% of the total, 99.8%. So we're basically remaining whole from a revenue perspective based on those additional fees. And then you can see below that we also have better than $1.1 million that's still in the collection process. So we believe we'll be collecting at least a bit more of that, so that number may go up. So again, from an overall perspective, the revenue story is a positive one, but I think it's very important to emphasize, as was alluded to earlier, that while we're staying whole, this, in the long run, this is not how we want the program to work. Specifically, we want to have legislation enacted that will enable us to reduce that 1.313 number, that is the latent violation fees collected, and increase the toll by mail bills collected, the 2082 number. Peg is going to walk you through the legislation that she and others are working on. But the bottom line is we think by getting that through, it'll strengthen the enforcement mechanisms and enable us to get more people to pay when they get that first bill rather than later in the process.
There is an existing law for toll violation enforcement, but we decided not to use it when we began the pilot. First of all, it was enacted in 1992 for Easy Pass, and it does not apply to violations that occur during an AET environment when customers don't pay their toll bills. In addition, the penalties enacted in 1992 are insufficient to deter toll violation in the 21st century. So what we're doing now is we're sending out, after the customers have had their opportunity to pay 2 toll bills, we send out notices of violation and ask them to pay the unpaid tolls and a violation fee of $50, which was enacted by the board for the pilot in 2010. If unpaid, and as you've seen, a surprising number of people pay the violation fee, but if unpaid, we send the tolls and the unpaid fees to a collection agency. And we are now in the process of, for the scofflaw violators, sending their accounts to outside collection counsel and suing them in civil court. During the first 6 months of 2013, the money we collected from those fees made up for the unpaid toll bills. But as Don and others have said, we don't want people to be paying large amounts of violation fees. We want them to pay their tolls in the first instance. And so we, with the other New York toll agencies, the Port Authority and the Thruway, have proposed legislation which would revise the existing toll law, and we believe deter toll evasion, and encourage people to pay their tolls in the first instance. The most important part of the legislation, as far as we're concerned, is it would revise the existing law to include violations during all electronic tolling. It would also then allow our tribunal, which is the Transit Adjudication Bureau operated by the Transit Authority, to impose liability for those kinds of toll violations as well as for Easy Pass violations. The legislation would also require the owner to pay the evaded tolls, which is clearly an oversight from the 1992 legislation, but one of the reasons why none of the toll agencies, including agencies like the Port and the Thruway, which have been gateless since the 90s, don't use that law to enforce toll violations. The other change would be that the New York State Department of Motor Vehicles would be able to suspend vehicle registrations if the owner either fails to appear or fails to pay the tab-imposed fines 3 times within 18 months. But I'd like to clarify one of the remarks of the Commissioner. We, unlike other states, will not be suspending driver's licenses. The existing law already states that a toll violation under the statute is not considered a conviction. It's not part of the owner's driving record, and it cannot be used for insurance purposes. On the other hand, we would be able to deny or suspend vehicle registration for your essentially blowing off the toll, either the tribunal appearance or the fines imposed by the tribunal. The other major change would be it would permit our DMV to enter into reciprocity agreements with the DMVs of other states, so that if a Massachusetts driver committed a toll violation here, the state of Massachusetts would suspend the driver's, or the owner's rather, vehicle registration, and we do the same for New Yorkers who are violating toll laws in Massachusetts. And those are the highlights of the legislation.
People who go through with a non-working transponder,
Invalid transponder or that,
It doesn't get read.
they get a toll bill.
They get a toll bill. And what rate?
Well, it depends.
If the tag doesn't work and the license plate on the account matches the license plate of the photo, we will then make an easy pass charge to that person's account. So there is no bill sent to that person.
But if your plate's not registered, you'd get a bill.
Can you answer this question? Between January and June of 2013, what percentage of the vehicles crossing the Henry Hudson Bridge never paid any toll and are unlikely, as a result of your collection efforts, to ever pay a toll? Anybody knows the answer to that one?
I don't think we know the answer to the second question about whether they are likely to pay the toll or not. They're in the collection, there are bills that are now in the collection process, and we hope to get as much of that as we can.
You have a percentage of collection recovery, so can't you plug that in and come up with an answer? Do you have an estimate?
I mean, it's still very early in the process, believe it or not, for a lot of these bills that are in the collection process. Anyone who got billed after 60 days, there's still quite a few that are just have been sent over to collection agencies at this point. So we don't really have a good sense.
Don, do you have a sense of whether most of the ones in the collection process are New York state tags versus out-of-state tags?
I believe the majority are New York state tags. Is that correct?
Is that 85% of the vehicles that go through the Henry Hudson and receive toll bills are vehicles registered to New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut residents. So there are 3 states that comprise the bulk of these transactions. As far as the percentage of plates that are placed with the collection agency, Connecticut statute does not allow us to refer their vehicle owners to collection agency. So what we have in collections now are New York and New Jersey license plates primarily.
And if I could just follow up, what happens? The Connecticut ones are just not pursued, or they're pursued by mail, but?
It's a condition of our agreement with Connecticut to provide the license plate and of the information with respect to the name and address of the registered owner.
Whoa. I don't understand that. So what you're saying is that while a New York or New Jersey person whose license plate is red gets a bill, a person gets a bill if they don't pay the toll, a person who has a Connecticut license plate who does not pay the toll or doesn't have an easy pass does not get a bill?
No.
When we're talking about gets the bill, but if they don't pay the bill can't go to the collection agency?
It goes to violation.
We send a notice of violation.
Okay.
But if they do not voluntarily pay it in response to the notice of violation,
Right.
we do not send it to a collection agency, and we will not send it to collection counsel to sue them. This has been a condition, my understanding is, of Connecticut's
That's my point.
agreement to provide DMV information, and it's true for the other New York tolling agencies as well.
What does Connecticut do with that information?
Nothing.
Let me make a point to you. I suspect that there are members of this committee who would urge that if you're going to give them special treatment, we give the same treatment to New Yorkers.
No. What I would suggest is that what we get that number is, and we add it to the bill we send Connecticut for Metro North, okay? Because it's not fair to treat some people differently than other people. And if I'm a Connecticut resident and I know number one, I don't have to pay, and number two, you can't make me pay, then I'm sitting there saying, well, what's the point?
I suspect there's going to be a rash of people applying for Connecticut tags.
Well, that's, but I mean, we have a contract with the state of Connecticut to do certain things. We should add this to our bill to them, whatever that number is, whether it's $5 or $500,000 or $5 million, whatever that number is, we should not let people get away from paying our toll. It's as simple as that. Well, they're toll, but it's our toll.
We talked about legislation which would allow our DMV to enter into reciprocity agreements. Connecticut at this point has no tolled facilities within the state itself, so Connecticut's attitude towards tolls would change when they erect their own tolled facilities.
If they ever erect their own toll facility. But we should not wait for Connecticut to do that without, I mean, we're treating people differently based upon where they register their automobile, and that's not right. We have provided a service to them, which is a Henry Hudson Bridge that is there. They voluntarily went over the Henry Hudson Bridge. They could have gone other routes and avoided the toll completely.
Seems to me you've got an
Not
equal
right.
protection problem here and a good defense for New York defendants. But let me,
I'm sorry.
I have 3 or 4 questions, but one of them is, on this whole issue, don't you still have police, Triborough Bridge and Tunnel Police on the Henry Hudson Bridge as I see them fairly frequently?
Yes, we do, Commissioner.
Then why do they not go after the fellow who is driving through without paying?
We have statistics to share with you, Commissioner.
I'm sorry?
We have some statistics to share with the committee members on enforcement.
All right, because it seems to me that's a piece of the argument as to whether or not these folks can do this sort of stuff. On the cameras, do the cameras photograph the license plates or the occupants other than when they go through without paying?
Well, if they don't have an easy pass, they're not paying at the plaza. We're going to send them a bill later.
I'm focused on the camera. Will the camera be triggered only if the person hasn't paid?
The camera actually takes an image of every vehicle. It gets stored when we determine that that image is needed.
Doesn't anybody have any respect for privacy anymore?
Has to do with the way the cameras are, the way it's integrated. We don't always know until after the transaction is processed, to some extent, whether we need that image.
Commissioner, I'd like to address the privacy issue. The existing law provides that the license plate images taken for purposes of toll collection and violation enforcement can be used solely for the purpose of toll collection and violation enforcement. They're available, obviously, to the customer herself, but we and the other toll agencies can only use it to send you a bill or send you a notice of violation. So there are very stringent protections for these license plate images.
Ask the NSA about respect.
No, I would just want to, I mean, I think this is a fantastic report, okay? It's clear that the large majority of the people going over the Henry Hudson Bridge are either paying when they go over the bridge or they're paying afterward. So I don't want to give anybody the impression that I don't think we're doing a great job. You're doing a great job on this. I think the concern, however, is some people have figured out how to beat it. And we should do everything we can to make sure that nobody can beat it in that context, regardless of whether it's a small number of people or not. It is a subset of the people who have figured out, because of the quirks of state law and reciprocity, how to beat it. Obviously, the passage of this legislation in New York will help to a large degree. It will not help completely. Right, it will not help completely, but I think once this law passes, hopefully it will this session, we can then use it with Connecticut as a way to encourage them to allow us to do what we need to do to those small number of people who are giving Connecticut drivers a bad name.
Okay. I think Mitch has anticipated my question is this legislation or legislative package in print and ready to go in this up and coming session?
Yes.
If you have images of all of the cars who go through without paying for whatever reason. And if you have information on those who have not paid despite billing, I assume that by computer activity, you can correlate that information. And my question is, can we start taking a good look at the possibility of preparing a list of those people who have done this more than once and hand it to the police officers at the bridge?
Commissioner, let me address that with some statistics. As you had said previous, we do have law enforcement officers patrolling the bridge, and we have issued summonses. So let me share the summonses with you on violators.
As of right now, for a list that was provided to us, we have interdicted 41 vehicles that were on that list, and we issued a total of 34 summonses to those vehicles. Now, they're in the process of appearing in court, but we do have a list of violators that is given to the enforcement people, and they are on the lookout for those vehicles that are on that list. So I just don't want to make it appear that it's only, through the mail. We are pursuing these people, every day. We're patrolling, and we're looking out for them.
Well done. Can I, Alan, ask one further question, please? We apparently have our own adjudication bureau for MTA violations, including those on the bridge. Query, has anybody taken a good hard look at the possibility of coordinating the adjudication bureaus that the city has, the state has, and the like, and maybe A, expediting, and B, saving some money? Why do we have separate ones?
I think the nature of the infractions at the Transit Adjudication Bureau are quite different from the nature of an infraction in toll violation, where TAB will in fact be our adjudication tribunal, but there are very limited defenses to a toll violation in ways. There are multiple defenses to my feet weren't on the seat, that kind of, it's a very different kind of a situation. Also, the existing tab is not particularly 21st century in nature. They're only now being able to accept credit card payments. We expect that our toll violation division, a lot of the payments will be much more like the Parking Violation Bureau, where a lot of the stuff is done online. So we will in fact be stealing all of the best ideas of the other agencies.
But my point is, why not do it in all one agency? They may be different violations, but as you know, lawyers tend to learn how to cope with different violations at the same time.
Chuck, if I just might interject, I think many of the violations that occur on TBTA facilities are either violations of the vehicle traffic law or they're violations of the penal law, in which case there are already specific courts that do that. TBTA does not have its own adjudication bureau.
No, we do just for toll violations, but you are correct, Commissioner. All of the summonses that we issue, they typically go to Traffic Violation Bureau, so the city already hears that. The difference is, if we pass the legislation, TBTA will get a portion of the penalties, and all of the summonses returnable in traffic court, the money just goes to the city.
Have a separate traffic adjudication bureau of any kind for tolls or anything else?
No, not at this time.
So you have no adjudication bureau at all?
That's why we're suing them in court.
Move the agenda, we're already well into finance.
Okay, I'll move past the safety report. It's for your review, and the customer environmental surveys for your review. If there's any questions, we'll be happy to answer them. And if not, we can move the committee along to the Easy Pass performance report.
Okay, the Easy Pass report it's the August report in this committee book. It begins on page 45. Our market share was up significantly again from the year before, about 2%. And year-to-date, it's about 83%. More than 25,000 Easy Pass accounts were opened in August. Year-to-date, it's at 154,000. 13,000 on-the-go accounts were opened in August, about 53% of the total. and about, we're almost to 250,000 now in on-the-go tags have been sold in the lane since the program began. If there are no questions on the Easy Pass report, I'll move to the financial report, which begins on page 51. Again, it's August in this committee book. Toll revenue for that month was up about 4.5% against the mid-year forecast, about $6.6 million. And year-to-date, we're up about $12.1 million against the budget. Total expenses were about $2.3 million lower than the mid-year, primarily due to lower labor expenses. Overtime still looking good. We're down about $1.4 million year-to-date through August, about 10.5%. And our support to mass transit is almost $689 million through August, about $17 million better than planned. And while it's not in the book, the September trends are very similar to August. And that concludes the finance report. There's no preliminary budget, is just for your information if there's any questions on the 2014 preliminary budget. And moving on to capital.
Move over to capital, Joe.
Capital program status report begins on page 65 of the committee book. It reflects activity through September 30th. In September, there were 14 commitments made with a cumulative value of $33.2 million year to date. There have been 91 commitments made with a cumulative value of $101.7 million. That compares to a planned 88 commitments and a cumulative value of $259.6 million. Variance between actual and planned commitments achieved year to date is largely attributable to the construction award of project VN80C and VN35, bus HOV, lane improvements, steel repair, concrete rehab, and painting at the Verrazano-Narrows Bridge. The budget of this now combined project commitment is $108.3 million. Favorable bids were received on the combined project on October 31st, and we are on target for construction award by year end. There were 2 project completions planned for September, one of which had been achieved earlier in July, and I'm pleased to report the second remaining commitment for 2013 was completed ahead of schedule and will be reported in next month's report. There's a number of award date revisions at the bottom of the page, and unless there are any questions, that completes my report.
If there are no questions, move on to procurement.
Okay. Starting on page 77, there are 12 procurement actions in all, totaling approximately $44,484,000. There are 9 competitive procurements, of which 4 for the award of personal service contracts. These 4 total approximately $25,008,000. 4 for the award of miscellaneous service contracts. These 4 procurements total approximately $1,596,000. The 9th competitive procurement is for a modification to public work for the switchgear replacement and power distribution system at the Ucari Tunnel, totaling approximately $1,214,807. There are also 3 ratifications. One for the furnish and installation of an integrated electronic security system at the Throgs Neck Bridge, and 2 Sandy-related procurements. One for various emergency mechanical and electrical repairs at both the Ucari and Queens Midtown tunnels, as well as at the Governor's Island pump room. And 1 ratification for the emergency dewatering and cleaning at the Queens Midtown tunnel prior to reopening the tunnel to traffic after Sandy. These 3 ratifications total approximately $16,665,000, and all these procurements are detailed in the enclosed staff summaries.
Commissioner.
I have 2 quick questions, one on a competitive procurement and one on a ratification, please. The competitive procurement number 6, Lund Fire Products, I note that there was only 1 bid. Could you maybe explain that, or is this not the time for that question?
No, that's fine. Gavin?
I'll take that question. We had reached out to the market back during the time of Sandy, and we were only able to get 1 bid. So in the interest of trying to obtain competition, we solicited again, only to find out that there was a limited amount of competition on the second go-around. So this actually is the 3rd solicitation that we've issued, and In the process of determining whether there was interest, some firms indicated that they, at the outset, may be interested in bidding on this job, and then after further consideration, elected not to participate. It's a difficult service to get competition. We've tried 3 times, and this is obviously the result we've had.
Okay, but it did jump out, so I want to inquire. Thanks for the explanation.
You're welcome.
Can I ask my
Second.
other one? So, but it's skipping to ratification, and it's just a question. On item number 2, Schiavone, that they obviously did necessary and crucial work, but I'm just curious, were they on some pre-existing list? How did you end up, I know they've done other work here, but were they on some list that enabled you to curtail the process?
They weren't on a specific list, but they had the requisite experience doing this type of work, had done extensive work at other tunnels, at other agencies. They were available at the time that we needed them.
Yeah, I realize that was an important aspect, but then the final related to that though, if they weren't on a retainer and you didn't really know what they'd charge, and this is not meant for 2020 hindsight, but it's meant for looking to the future. The conclusory statement is made in the second paragraph that the negotiated amount is fair and reasonable. How can we be confident of that?
Well, it's fair and reasonable based upon the prevailing wage rates that we checked against, their pay statements, their billing, their invoices, our internal estimates are reviewed and compared against them.
Okay, thank you for the explanation. Thank you.
Mr. Myrtler.
Chavone. Correct me if I'm wrong. Chavone is one of 4 companies owned by Dragados, correct?
Correct.
And all 4 of those Dragados companies engage in activity for the MTA, theoretically competing with one another, correct?
Correct.
Now, my question is, only Chavone was available and bidding here, and the other 3 were silent, correct?
True. I'd have to get back to you on specifically.
My point, and I don't mean to badger you, it's back to my issue on competition and true competition. Here we go with it again. I have one other question on this Chavone thing. Chavone was cited within the past 2 years for problems on discrimination laws. Have we done anything here to make sure that there are no problems on this one?
Discrimination laws as far as...
I believe it was hiring. It was a federal action, EEOC action. Do take a look. I may be wrong, and if I am, I apologize.
We can
to
review it,
them
and
and to
we'll
you.
certainly get back to you and follow up on that.
Need a motion to approve?
Yes.
So moved.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Move on.
Okay, with that, we'll move to page 97, where we have a report on diversity. If I may, B&T met and exceeded utilization goals of 84% of job categories for females, blacks, and Hispanics. There was female underutilization in the officials, administrators, administrative support, and the service maintenance job categories. In response, B&T launched the following recruitment and outreach efforts to achieve improvements in these areas as described below. The March 2013 Engineering and Construction Job Fair was organized by B&T's Human Resource Department, which performed outreach efforts to minority and professional organizations, colleges, and universities. The job fair resulted in 424 applicants. Beginning in April of 13, 39 were hired, including 29 minorities and 13 females. Many human resources, payroll, and finance duties in the administrative support category were transferred to the MTA Business Service Center. Going forward, B&T's focus will be on the recruitment of female and minority analysts to support its retained functions. In the maintenance category, the civil service title maintainer, bridge and tunnels, requires significant technical and/or vocational experience. For this reason, female candidates have historically faced challenges meeting the requirements. Extensive recruitment was conducted by B&T Human Resources and maintenance personnel to assist from New York City Transit's Human Resources Department. Specific outreach to veterans, nonprofits, community service organizations, and technical schools, as well as advocates for winter women, non-traditional employment for women, women in construction, Women's Automotive Association, and the Association of Women in Aviation. Drew a total of 416 applicants, of whom 342 took the civil service exam and 149 passed. Among these, there were 146 applicants who identified themselves as Hispanic, and 132 of them took the exam, with 67 passing. There were 8 female applicants, 4 took the exam, none passed. The Management Associates Program, a successful planning diversity initiative, completed the first of its 2.5 years in May of 13. The program was designed to give management associates experience in performing analytical work in several B&T's larger departments with the goal of potential employment within the entire MTA. B&T will continue to exercise its best efforts to attract female and minority candidates and encourage them to take civil service examinations, and will develop outreach programs that will emphasize the benefits of working for the country's largest toll collection entity. If there are any questions, we'd be glad to take them.
Okay. The customer satisfaction survey is in.
It's in the book for your review and any comments.
All right.
With that, we end the report.
All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.